Welcome back to the Birdhouse Dynasty Show and our live Tuesday night heater. I'm here to answer any of your questions, whether it's waiver wire at start sits, your trade questions. Go ahead, throw them at me in the chat. I'm ready. How we doing tonight? Tuesday night. October 28th, 2025. We've got the World Series going on. Man, I should have that on in the background here. All right. But we'll get that on for you. Give you a little play-by-play, right? Yeah, but wild weekend, week 8. Now we're heading into week 9. It is decision time in the Dynasty streets. Middle of the season here. Which lane are you taking? One way or the other. Are you contending or are you retooling? So a lot of trades this week have had to do with that aspect. Of course, Cam Scadaboo going down helped make that decision. Unfortunately for some teams, now other teams may have been able to pull off a deal for either Tyron Tracy or some other running back to help alleviate the Scadaboo injury. So hopefully you were in that boat, but we do want to talk about some players who are hot and some who are not, and whether or not it's a good idea to go after them in deals, because I see that their value may increase over the remainder of the season, or to fade them because maybe they're hot but they're not going to be the rest of the season. So maybe you want to unload those guys. And then on the other side of the spectrum, the players who are not producing too well or not living up to expectations prior to the season. What are we to do with them? Do you need to hold because they're going to finally turn it on? Or do you need to just say, this wasn't their season? Is it time to unload them onto maybe a pretender or a team that's not contending, who's more willing to take on the disappointment of this season and bet on them bouncing back next season? And you want to go get somebody who is producing points, right? Somebody like a Javonte Williams, right? Whose value has increased, but you're still probably not paying for Javonte, who's RB8 on the season. If you're paying just a first rounder for him, that's pretty good for RB8 numbers. I definitely wouldn't recommend paying anything more than that for Javonte, but I'm just saying, or do you go after a Rico Dowdle because you think the Panthers are actually going to give him more opportunity because he actually has looked better than Chuba Hubbard since Chuba's return? Dowdle has still kept up his hot pace, not quite what he was doing when Chuba wasn't on the field, but is Rico Dowdle, if you can get Rico for a second right now, I would take that, right? I can't see his work going down at all. Now, Chuba stole a touchdown from him last week, but I think going forward, that's somebody you might want to look into. Now, my favorite, of course, because I bought in heavily this off season, probably my second most owned rookie. That is, I don't want the script. That is the one and only Travis Hunter. Yes, Travis is hot, on fire here. So what are we doing with Travis Hunter, right? I'm sure if you own him, you do not want to get rid of him. Not necessarily 100% sure on that. Maybe you feel that, he's this last week might be the time to now sell. Okay, he's currently going at about a first rounder whether that's an early first, late first, whatever. It depends on your league. I mean, whoever owns him kind of depends on if they actually drafted him in the rookie draft in with a top 5 pick, right? Because then they want to recoup that kind of value. Maybe they traded for him late because the original drafter dumped him and they got him for, I don't know, a couple of seconds, super cheap, right? And then now they want to increase the profit there, so they'll just give him to you for a first. I don't know. It's very league dependent. All I know, all I know is my two eyes show me that Travis Hunter is the number 1 here, and Brian Thomas is going to be in the number 2. Okay, think of Brian Thomas like you think of T. Higgins and Devonta Smith and Jordan Addison, right? Talented, very talented number 2s who, at certain points, if there's an injury to the top guy, can produce like top 10 wide receivers. That's how I am looking at Brian Thomas going forward. Never, I would not pay more than a first for him, like a late first. All right, if you're a contender, I don't hate that because, like, put it this way, Trevor Lawrence could not be any worse than he has been this first half of the season. Most of the Dynasty community bought into Trevor Lawrence ascending this season because of the addition of this man, Travis Hunter. Well, Hunter has only really played heavily at wide receiver a couple of times this year. You can see the snap rate, snap share. The last 2 weeks, 87% and 78%. Prior to that, he had a 67% week, but then before that, it was only about 50% of the time. All right. Now that with this last week, before the bye, him getting 14 targets, 8 catches for 101 yards and a touchdown over in London, with the previous week getting 7 targets. I know he only had 4 catches for 15 yards, but the 7 targets were what we were all excited about. And then he turned it on in week 7. So, am I speaking hyperbole? Am I going too much in there? Well, think about this. What did the Jacksonville Jaguars pay for Travis Hunter? Exactly. They paid what most teams pay for quarterbacks in drafts to move up and get quarterbacks. Their new GM is going to live and die by this deal, whether Travis Hunter makes it or not, and makes the Jaguars a perennial playoff team or not. Personally, I believe in the talent, and so when I can acquire it, I am going to acquire it. Now, am I going to pay more than a mid first right now? Maybe a mid first and a third. I do. I'm not giving up 2 firsts. All right, it's not like I did do that prior to the season. I gave up 2 firsts, got back Hunter, and I think a second. Okay, so. They were late, the firsts, or at least I had a playoff contender that I thought I did. Right now, that team is middle of the pack. All right, so it's a catch-22 right now. I'm middle of the pack. I don't have my first. Do I look like a title contender? Probably not, but I've had a few injuries. Now, if somebody like Travis Hunter turns it up, different story. Now, this is a best ball league also, so that has another little dynamic into it, so that because in best ball leagues, the playoffs are a little more up in the air. We'll put it that way. Lineup leagues, the top 4 teams pretty much, you might have one upset or 2 in the first round, but generally speaking, the top 4 teams end up advancing, and that's how it's played out, especially years 4 and 5 into a league or further, right? Because there's a little more separation. But if you're in like this league in particular, the second season of existence, as a middle of the pack team, like, I mean, I came into the season, I think I finished in second or third in this league last year, right? And so far in points, like I said, I think I'm sitting in sixth place, but points wise, I'm like top four. So, I mean, yes, I feel like I've got a good shot. There isn't one team in this league that's like far and away better than the others, all right? So, a lot of you might be in that boat. And when you're in that boat, where you've already given up your first and you're stuck in the middle, unless you have a ton of injuries, I wouldn't buy into going to try and acquire your first back so that you can then go forward with more trades to just retool for next season. If you're a top half of the league team and it's only in year two, so there's not too many juggernauts in the league, I'd just say roll with it and see where it takes you. Now this league isn't one where there is a trade deadline in this one, so that's where I'm at. I'm gonna keep rolling and keep contending, and that's what I would recommend for you. Now, if you do own your own first and you do have a lot of, like, say you have Mike Evans and Chris Godwin and you had Cam Scattaboo, right? That's a situation where I don't know if you want it. It depends on the bottom three or four teams in your league, what they have available, whether your quote unquote playoff first is going to be worth swinging for the fences for a guy like Javonte Williams, right? Because that's where the price tag is at. Okay. Would you do it for Derrick Henry, right? Those are the kind of questions that you're all asking right now, and I'm just here to help, try to make it easier for you. All right. So Travis Hunter currently sitting at wide receiver 47, but again, about 5 weeks of the season, he really wasn't getting a whole lot of action. So we'll see where he moves up from here right now. Now, his teammate, Brian Thomas, on the other hand, Brian Thomas sitting at wide receiver 36. Obvious disappointment for many, but yet, you look at the target numbers 7, 12, 6, 7, 6, 10, 7. Not terrible, but the fact that he hasn't gone over 100 yards yet, that is hugely disappointing. I mean, he's had a 90-yard game with a touchdown and an 80-yard game, but he's sitting on one touchdown, right? If Trevor Lawrence, seriously, if Trevor Lawrence just turns it up just a tick, and he's sitting at QB 16 right now. If he ends up being able to finish as like QB 12 or even up to QB 10, like these two, BTJ or Travis Hunter, either of them could go on a heater during the playoffs and help win you your league. All right. So Trevor Lawrence, somebody you could probably get super cheap, though I don't recommend it. But if you need a quarterback, like he's a quarterback body, and you can honestly possibly buy him for a couple of seconds, like he's locked in. He's going to be Jacksonville's quarterback. He's not going anywhere. Like his contract says he's the guy, and they really don't have much of a choice. So that's one option I don't love. I'm not actually actively going out and acquiring Trevor Lawrence because honestly, I've had just as much success with the injuries that have occurred so far this season and grabbing backup quarterbacks. And I'll start Jacoby Brissett. I'll start Andy Dalton, which didn't work out, but really no different than starting Trevor Lawrence. So that's the route I've decided to go. Just play the waiver wire with the all the backup quarterbacks that have been getting action. Doesn't matter who they are. Tyler Huntley last week got into my lineup a couple times. So yeah, just stay active. Look ahead. Read some tweets. That's how I picked up Jacoby Brissett. A couple weeks ago, I just read a tweet that said that Kyler Murray had to sit out of practice, and I was like, boom, I'll scoop up Jacoby Brissett on the bottom of my lineup, and we'll see if he ends up getting the start, and then I can plug him in. So just watch for those. I would expect Kenny Pickett probably to get some action. He's one guy to monitor. He's with the Raiders right now, and Geno Smith has just been obviously straight up garbage. So you can see what I'm getting at the quarterback position. Ultimately, the most important position in our superflex leagues. At least you need to be getting points weekly from those positions. He is. Don't pay too much for him. Now we're going to talk about a hammer, though, at the quarterback position, and that's Lamar Jackson. Yes. So we're all hoping and praying that Lamar comes back this week. I have Lamar in plenty of leagues, and so I'm definitely hoping for Lamar to be back. He's missed 3 games now, and this Thursday night is at Miami with just a juicy matchup. I am looking forward to it because I have another buy for you, and that is Zay Flowers. Flowers sitting at wide receiver 27 on the season. Last week, 9 targets, 7 for 63. Problem is, Zay hasn't gotten into the end zone much since week 1, in fact, when he went 7 for 153 and a touchdown. Now, since then, he's had a 7 for 75, a 7 for 74, 5 for 72. So you can see he's gotten into double digits every week except for 2 weeks. Well, it depends. A full PPR league, that would have been, oh, he had a fumble loss. Okay. So 2 weeks he's been under 10 points. But otherwise, he's been pretty darn consistent. The problem is Baltimore's offense has just been rough this year. So it's Zay Flowers, though, somebody that, look, as much as he's struggled, he's still wide receiver 27, and Brian Thomas is wide receiver 36. Okay? Put that into perspective. All right? So, yes, Zay Flowers isn't a top 10 wide receiver. He's not putting up Rome Odunze numbers. He's not even, I don't know, where's Lad McConkey? McConkey, probably pretty similar. Let's see, wide receiver 17 now. Okay, well, Lad's had a couple of strong games since starting off rough the first 4 weeks. Lad has bounced back with a touchdown. That week 5 game wasn't too great, just 5 for 39. But then the last 3 games now, 7 for 100 and a touchdown, 9 for 67, 6 for 88. So yeah, Lad's probably priced him out of that range, but Zay Flowers still cheap enough that I think he'd be somebody to target in either a bigger deal where you can sneak him in to the deal somehow, because the Zay Flowers owner right now, okay, Zay Flowers has never been like a top 10 wide receiver, right? There's been people who've had hopes for that, but they've never really panned out, right? Now, the thing with Zay is for a stretch, and I'm talking 2 or 3 weeks, for a stretch, he could make it happen. And that's all you're looking for in the playoffs. In weeks 15, 16, 17, you need wide receivers that get hot. That's how you end up winning these things. It's whether your Jamar Chase blows up, but sometimes it's not Jamar Chase. Sometimes it's a Zay Flowers. Sometimes it's a Christian Watson. I remember when Percy Harvin just went balls out. And those are the types of guys that really, really pay off. It's when you get those wide receivers ranked 15 through 40. Those guys who are very polarizing, your T. Higgins, your, right now, Marvin Harrison. That's who I want to talk about next is Marv. Marv has a great schedule coming up. All right. So it's an interesting dynamic with Marv. Obviously, he hasn't lived up to expectations, but I think we need to set those expectations at a certain spot, okay? He's got Dallas coming up this week off of a bye, then at Seattle, so 2 good matchups right out the gate. San Francisco might be a little tougher, but then Jacksonville, then Tampa, all those are good matchups. So 4 out of the next 5 weeks here are pretty solid matchups for Marv to get out of this funk. Now, Kyler Murray, another one, super polarizing. If you're willing to gamble on these two, this is something that could pay off because A, they're going to be cheaper than normal. Right now, people are frustrated with their Marv shares. People are super frustrated with their Kyler shares. So much so, like, I don't own any Kyler, and I'm not saying go out there and actively try to get him, but he's so damn cheap. Like, a second rounder could get it and help fill you in at your quarterback hole if you have one. All right. Maybe you have had an injury. I don't know what your quarterback situation is. I'm just saying that Kyler's super cheap, and as bad as he's played fantasy wise, he's still been. Let's see. It doesn't give his. Where's the history here? Can't do it on here. Okay, well, his points 19.8, 14.5, 15, 16.6, 16.3. All right, nothing special. Okay, but the fact is, again, some decent matchups coming up here. Dallas, Seattle, not the Niners, but Jacksonville and Tampa. Those are some really good matchups right before you head into the playoffs. And, of course, they've got a matchup with Cincinnati in Week 17. So that should be fun. All right. Just saying, it's a cheap buy. Could pay off. All right. I don't love it. But now to some guys who could end up disappointing a little. And I want to start this off with Jackson Dart. Now, Dart, if you saw the... Hey, Colin, what's up? Just mentioned your Bengals. Still alive. They're still alive. They did screw me in the eliminator pool last week, but should have taken your advice. You told me to stay away from them. Yeah. Should have just went with my Buccaneers in New Orleans. I don't know what I was thinking. Anyway. I was thinking that the refs were against us, which they were. But we were strong enough to prevail. I wish you and your Bengals the best, though, because the NFL is more fun when Joe Burrow and Jamar Chase are in the playoffs. I'll just say that. All right. So Jackson Dart. Now, Dart obviously had neighbors go out early this year. Now he just loses his tank in Cam Scattaboo, and you could tell he was devastated when it happened. You can tell the two of them were having a great time. Just really lifting up the city of New York, the Giants fans at least. And now Dart has to move on without him. And Tyron Tracy can fill in, at least numbers-wise. But I don't, he doesn't bring the juice that Scattaboo brought. And so Dart might have a little bit of a letdown starting this week against the Niners. It's at home, but the Niners have a gritty defense that's kind of survived without Fred Warner and Joey Bosa being out. They've just had a lot of injuries, but yet they're still going to show up and play hard. The key is what mindset is Jackson Dart in, really. So what I'm getting at is, boy, it's a tough call. I don't know that you want to necessarily trade him off, but he has ascended very highly. We'll just put it that way. And so it doesn't hurt to see what you could acquire for Jackson Dart. That's just one that I want to talk about. Baker is the other. Now, I love Baker, don't get me wrong, but these injuries have finally worn him down to the point where the last 2 weeks he's taken a step back. We'll just put it at that. Detroit game, only 11 points, and last week at New Orleans, only 4 points in this format. So Baker struggled a little. Now, they have a bye this week. Then following the bye, I don't know that Godwin will be back. I do think that Bucky Irving will be back, so that would help for sure. Getting the running game going always helps the passing game. But then it comes down to like Emeka Egbuka. Is he a bona fide number one type wide receiver? Like he sure played the part for the first 4 or 5 games, right? But at the same time, like Mike Evans was there for most of those games. I don't know. Point being, and this is what I always was scared about with Egbuka rising up so quickly. I don't know that he's a true bona fide number one. And so without that, Baker's been forced to dump off to Cade Otton a lot. The defenses have sort of caught on to that. Now, New Orleans, we were just able to steamroll by will, basically, because they're just so bad. But Baker's another one who you could cash out on if you wanted to and look elsewhere at quarterback. All right. So just a couple of ideas there. Godwin again. I don't expect him back for a couple more weeks, at least probably week 11 or 12, I would say, maybe. And Mike Evans, I'd be shocked if he plays another regular season game, honestly. Maybe they'll bring him back week 17 or 18. I don't know. As far as I know, the healing's going well, but that clavicle is a injury that can last anywhere from 6 to 12 weeks. So that's quite a wide range that leaves us talking him back anywhere from week 13 through 18. All right. So kind of depends on how the Bucks and their record goes too as well. Like if they have to get a win, then he might come back earlier than he should. Mike's that kind of player, so I wouldn't be surprised if he were to do that. All right. So you've got Bucky Irving also. One more week. I don't know that you can really trade for him now. That'd be kind of difficult to pull off. But one guy who has been stepping up and I don't think is going to slow down, that's Drake May. And May and the Patriots will take on the Falcons at home. The Falcons have a real Jekyll and Hyde defense. Then they head to Tampa. Then they play the Jets and then the Bengals. So good, solid schedule coming up these next 4 weeks. He's been real matchup proof, honestly, has May. I mean, only one rough performance fantasy-wise that I can really say. Maybe two if you want to count that Las Vegas opener. But against the Bills, he just had 12 points. Otherwise, he's up over 20 points every week. He's spreading the ball around. I don't know that I can clearly say that he's got a go-to guy. I know that Keyshawn Butte has definitely stepped up a little. Stephon Diggs is there, of course, and his boy Hunter Henry. Travion Henderson got a little more run last week, while Stevenson disappointed. So maybe we're going to see some more Travion. I know a lot of us Dynasty people will love to see that. But Drake May is somebody who probably difficult to go out and acquire now. All depends on who owns him in your league. All right. Now, I want to get to a little bit of a rookie running back report before we get on out of here for Tuesday night. Again, any questions, go ahead. Drop them in the chat. You can leave them in the comments afterwards. Don't forget to hit that like and subscribe. Now, didn't want to do that, but all right. Let's bring up Ashton Jeanty. We'll start with him. Top running back taken in the class, both in the NFL and all of our rookie drafts. Jeanty's obviously been a disappointment so far. The Raiders' O-line's been terrible. I remember after week 4 or 5, was it, he had literally more yards after contact than he did actual yards gained. So then he had, I think those were the first 3 weeks. Then he had the monster game against the Bears, decent game against the Colts, all right game against the Titans, and then a stinker last week against the Chiefs. And then the bye, or sorry, week 7 against the Chiefs, and then the bye last week. Now he gets Jacksonville coming up. Does have to play at Denver, but then he gets Dallas. So 2 out of the next 3 matchups are pretty solid for Genty. Genty's definitely somebody who you can buy now, all right? I am still on the bandwagon of talent over situation, and who knows what's going to happen here with the Raiders in this second half of the season. This isn't a scenario here where Pete Carroll's looking to rebuild. All right, they're not going to pack it in and play for next year. So if Geno Smith continues to suck, you could see Kenny Pickett in here. You could see things change a little bit. Jacoby Myers could get dealt, and that would open up targets for some of the other younger guys, right? Brock Bowers has been out almost the entire first half of the season. He comes back, that opens up things for Genty. So just some things to keep in mind when you're talking Ashton Genty. You could probably get him for, I don't know, a single first right now. I think that's doable. Then we have Omarion Hampton. Omarion Hampton's been out since week 6. So he's missed 3 games now. Hampton's injury. Of course, they're asking now if he'll be back week 10 with this ankle injury. You have a high ankle sprain, it's usually 4 to 6 weeks. Now, if they're leaning towards 6 weeks, especially with Kamani Vidal's good performance so far, then we're looking at, their bye is week 12. He might not be back until after that. Now, that could be a good thing for the fantasy playoffs if you have him, and a good run for him in the playoffs. But what are you going to do in the meantime? All right, again, it kind of depends on your situation, right? Do you have a bottom-dwelling team that's willing to take on Omarion Hampton for one of their solid producing running backs? Now, if they have Javonte Williams, okay, I would not want to do Hampton for Williams straight up. I'd want something on top of Javonte. It all depends on your league and who's available. Again, you got to look at those bottom 3 or 4 teams in your leagues, but Hampton's somebody who could definitely smash come the playoffs. Then we get into the tricky ones. Travion Henderson, as I mentioned, finally had a decent game last week, 10 for 75, giving a lot of us hope. Now, he didn't get any catches, which is what we kind of drafted him for. But the uptick in usage was nice. So we'll see how that looks going forward. He's more of a speculative buy. If you're a top contender, I don't necessarily recommend going and trading for him. He's more one of those wild cards, like if you're in the middle of the pack and, maybe you do want to get out of Javonte Williams, then there's a deal you could look at. Just some ideas out there. Don't overpay, though. I mean, I know he went for a first. Like a mid-first is where he got drafted most leagues. You shouldn't have to still pay that amount for Travion. That's for sure. Because like it or not, the Patriots and Mike Vrabel, he's still going to keep playing Ramondre Stevenson. So he's going to be that thorn in your side no matter what you think may happen, what you want to happen. All right. Then we have R.J. Harvey, who just came alive last week. 3 touchdowns on the day against the Cowboys. Now, they get the Texans this week in a tough matchup. So it'll be a tough game for Harvey to build on. But next week they get the Raiders. So you might have to wait. I don't know. I have Harvey on my bench in most of the leagues that I have him. But anyway, it was, regardless, I mean, it was just really nice to see him get some action And hopefully you can build on that even without waiting for a Dobbins injury. You get a Dobbins injury, and then that's gold. All right. Next up, Caleb Johnson. Remember Caleb Johnson and all the hype? I sure don't. Jeez. This guy. Okay, so this is a super buy low. If you're on the bottom of your leagues, bottom 3 or 4, this is an ideal target for you because you can look to see how cheap you can acquire him for. Throw 2/3 at him. Hell, throw 1/3 and see what they say. Throw him in the backside of a bigger deal if you're trading with a contender and they happen to have Caleb Johnson just sitting there doing nothing on their roster. Caleb Johnson still has talent. The Steelers are known to play their veterans, all right? It's tough, especially when you have a veteran like Jaylen Warren who knew the system, and then you get a savvy guy like Kenneth Gainwell coming in. I'm still surprised at the limited amount of usage Johnson's gotten, but at the same time, you get a major injury to either Warren or Gainwell, and you can see a huge uptick in Caleb Johnson, and he only has one direction to go right now. He's the 98th running back, and that direction is up. So, great buying opportunity for Caleb right now. Next up, we have Scattaboo, and so obviously he's blown up. We all love him. Plays hard, great attitude. I mean, this dude, it just sucks. RB10 on the season, even with limited stats last week. He did get into the end zone before the injury, but this is an ideal buy for a rebuilding team. Although I would maybe wait a week or two for trying to go out there and acquire him, because right now you're still paying almost full price. Like, he's risen up so much that he's worth probably like a mid-first right now. And I don't know that you want to pay that, especially not your own first if you're rebuilding. So just keep that in mind. But if you have a running back that, again, I'll bring up Javonte Williams just because he's easy pickings. If you have somebody like him, you add a little bit, you could probably get Scattaboo. I would try and force the issue to just do it straight up because they're getting points. You're dumping the points. Scattaboo's value is going to decrease, so you should throw that into the mix. I don't know. You get the point, though. He's not going to score any more points the rest of the season, so he only helps your chances to increase your draft pick for the 2026 rookie draft. Next up, we've got Bashul Tootin. Scootin' Tootin' here. Hasn't done a whole lot of scooting, but you know what? The opportunity is still there. Again, this comes back to the whole Trevor Lawrence thing and the Jacksonville offense. Can they improve this second half of the season? The door would be wide open for Tootin to explode with an ETN injury. Even without an ETN injury, Tootin could get an uptick in targets, in handoffs. So this is a dude who, I wouldn't mind paying a second for. That's where he was drafted. And so far he hasn't, put it this way, he hasn't been Caleb Johnson. He hasn't risen like Scattaboo, but he's just kind of been there. Now, the door is... He has his opportunity. So if you have a ton of picks, I'm telling you this right now, you're not going to get a running back with his talent in the second round of the 2026 rookie drafts. All right? He's more talented than any running back you're going to get in that 2026 second round of rookie drafts. Next up, another guy. This guy's moved up the ranks. He's definitely surpassed Tootin for sure in value. He is Woody Marks, and Woody has not supplanted Nick Chubb, but I think this second half of the season for the Texans will tell a lot what's going to happen in the future. Nick Chubb, I don't know that he has much of a future with the Texans, and so they're very motivated to give Woody Marks more touches. then they know what they have going into the offseason. If they have to bring in a better back, or if they can go with Woody at number one and just bring in a complimentary back to Woody. But Woody is somebody who, you know, going for a second rounder as well, like Tootin. So I would rather get Woody based on the volume. I think talent wise, they're pretty similar. But Woody's got more of an opening right now to larger volume. So I would go after Woody first. Although if you're rebuilding completely, I guess I'd be fine settling on Tootin, probably less points. Next up, Burchard Smith, my most owned player, basically. I was able to get him super cheap in the fourth rounds of a lot of leagues. And man, do I wish I had just drafted Oronde Gadsden with all of those picks. I got a decent amount of Gadsden, but love this guy a little too much, probably. Now, we'll get to see here what Pacheco's injury. He hurt his knee, got drilled in the knee on Monday night's game against Washington. They may hold him out for a week or two, Kansas City. They have a bye coming up week 10, so I could see them sitting Pacheco for week 9, then having the bye, and then seeing where he's at for week 10. So that would mean Kareem Hunt and Burchard Smith get most of the volume this week. Now, the volume at running back isn't so great for the Chiefs, but if you had Kareem Hunt in your lineup last night, you definitely were rewarded. If you had Burchard Smith, however, you definitely were not. And so that burned me in a couple weeks. But that said, Burchard Smith is way younger than both Hunt and Pacheco. And he is the only one that we know will be with the Chiefs next season. So they are not obligated, but they are motivated to continue to give this kid some more and more looks. I just can't believe last night. I guess it's just how the game flow went. And, you know, he didn't even get a single target. Expect that to change going forward. They want him to be their Jerick McKinnon. And so that, I think they will continue to try and make happen. Then the final rookie I want to touch on, Kyle Monangai. All right, so DeAndre Swift has really torn it up the last 4 weeks, but he's kind of preyed on weak opponents. Now, Baltimore and Washington wouldn't have necessarily been considered weak before the season started, but they've both dealt with their share of injuries, and so both of them, Swift had good games against them. Now, Monangai capitalized against the Saints and had an 81-yard and 1 touchdown performance. Monangai, the Bears are motivated to give this kid more and more opportunity. Again, DeAndre Swift is not this regime's guy. They just happened to have him when they got him, and Ben Johnson dealt with him in Detroit and eventually shipped him on out. So if Monangai starts looking better, expect more usage out of Monangai. He's RB 47 right now. You can still get him before he explodes. So if you want to bet on the Bears offense stepping things up this second half of the season, you get to see here they start out at Cincinnati against the Giants and at Minnesota. Not necessarily difficult matchups, right? Even Pittsburgh after that. So the next 4 games are all winnable for Chicago, and all games where Monangai will have the opportunity. So another super cheap rookie that you can get thrown in on the back end of deals. That's where you're looking to capitalize. You try and trade for these guys 1 for 1, like offer a single draft pick for this kid, and you're going to end up paying more than you would if you just have him thrown in. Find an ideal trade off of what I have been talking about would be getting rid of, let's say, Brian Thomas or Marvin Harrison Jr. for Zay Flowers and one of these running backs. That's something that gives you upside, gives you Zay Flowers, somebody who's outscored both of those wide receivers already on the season. And so that's something that can sneakily get you more points, even though it doesn't look like you're doing a whole lot, right? just gives you more boost, more ceiling. All right, that's what we're looking for is ceiling. And one guy that I mentioned in my waiver video with Dynasty Rewind that came out this morning was Christian Watson. Christian Watson, surprise active kind of late, announced on the weekend prior to Sunday night's game against the Steelers. And Christian Watson, again, yes, is he injury prone? Of course. But he is like Alex Pierce plus, right? When he is hot, Christian Watson actually is a guy with the Packers that could get a ton of targets, okay? So if he is able to hold up that hamstring of his, that trick hamstring, if he's able to hold up and he starts getting looks, gets going in the fantasy playoffs, he's somebody that could help lead you to a title. And he's dirt cheap. Like, I know he just played a game, but he is kind of perfect in that he didn't score like some monster 60-yard touchdown. He only went 4 for 85, so it doesn't look amazing, but it was good. Okay, he showed up, showed he can still do it. Now I know Devontae Wicks will be back at some point. I know Jaden Reed's coming back at some point, but the fact is that Christian Watson's more talented than any of those guys, and so he could separate himself a little bit from the rest of the pack there in the wide receiver room at least. Tucker Kraft, I think, has a stranglehold on the tight end targets, but man, Jordan Love's playing at a great level. Packers offense looking strong, so that's just another little guy you could have thrown into the deal and could pay off big for you. Well, that's all I've got for you tonight. Thank you for joining tonight. Be sure to hit that like and subscribe for more great content. I'm doing stuff over on Dynasty Rewind too, having a good time over there with those guys. And I just appreciate you guys tuning in tonight. Go ahead and throw any of your questions down in the comments. And remember, never stop working.